Welcome. Good morning. Good to see some people on video. So excited for this amazing conversation today, and we'll probably have some people continuing to trickle in, so we'll let people join us as they arrive. But my name is Brittany McDonald. I am the Vice President of Enrollment here at Coach Training EDU. I do hold my Master Certified Coach credential with the International Coach Federation, and I actually started my coaching career as an academic coach about 15 years ago. So I am incredibly honored today to be here with our amazing panel of coaches and educators discussing coaching underrepresented student populations. And so I will be introducing here in just a moment in more detail Dr. Rodney McClain, Dr. Jing ge-stadnyk, and Manda Kelly. But before I jump into that, I'm also honored to be here with Ashley Scott, our Associate Provost. And she's going to take a minute just to share briefly about coaching and Coach Training EDU. I know we are joined by many of our own coaches in the Coach Training EDU community, but we may also have some educators and others who are new to coaching here. So I just want us to take a moment to introduce our organization and what coaching is all about. So Ashley, if you would take a couple minutes to share, we would love to hear.
Yeah, thank you, Brittany. And thank you all for being here. We're so excited to see you today. And I'm so excited to be in this workshop with you and hear from our amazing panelists. Again, my name is Ashley Scott. I'm Associate Provost with Coach Training EDU. And Coach Training EDU, we've been around since 2009, and academic life coaching is actually the heartbeat and the foundation of our organization. So we started off as academic life coaching, an academic life coach training program. And so we are passionate about academic life coaching and seeing it come into as many universities and schools as we can because we've seen such a significant impact. And so I'm going to explain a little bit about what coaching is, just so we can all get on the same page with that. So our definition of coaching is life coaching is a professional relationship between a client and a coach designed to help the client increase self awareness, generate learning, and identify and accomplish meaningful goals. So I'll go ahead and share that with you here in the chat in a second, too. So, coaching is a partnership that enables your client to trust their own instincts and solve their own problems. So, I like to think of it as coaching as like a road trip. So, first, the client is the driver. Second, coaches have the map, so the GPS and maybe even the snacks. But we don't make the actual decisions. And then the third point is that our job is simply to ask the questions that help our client pick the route that will serve them best in getting to their destination. And so I'm really excited for today because we will be exploring how coaching can be used to support and empower underrepresented student populations. So thank you again so much for being here, Brittany. Thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ashley. I'm excited and privileged to introduce the stars of our conversation today. These are some amazing coaches and educators that I've been very privileged to get to know and just so impressed by the work that they're doing in the coaching space as they work in higher education. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce them. First of all, I'd love to introduce Dr. Jing ge-stadnyk. Jing, thank you for being here today. Jing is a lecturer and researcher of digital anthropology at the University of California, Berkeley. She is an academic coach who strives to spark, empower, and support students in pursuing academic success, exploring self-potential, and making personal and career decisions. I am personally so impressed at the phenomenal work she's doing, bringing coaching perspectives and mindsets into the classroom, curriculum design, and more. And I love her current research topic, which is looking into how college students use internet-based humor to build relationships. So Jing, thank you so much for joining us today out there in California. All right, we're also here with Dr. Rodney McClain, PhD. Hello, Dr. Rodney. He is a researcher and retired educator who has served in higher education for over 40 years. He has worked with low-income first-generation college teens, displaced adults, and returning students who are seeking to improve their lives through higher education. Dr. McClain currently teaches part-time in the psychology department at Milwaukee Area Technical College, and his PhD thesis was on the expectations and lived experiences of African American males in attendance at an urban community college. So as you can see, he is passionate about serving displaced students from diverse backgrounds and especially has a deep passion for working with and mentoring Black males in higher education and others as they seek coaching, navigation, and inspirational mentoring. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. McClain. All right. And finally, Manda Kelly. We're so glad to have you here. She serves as the Director of Academic Support and Accessibility at Spring Arbor University, where she is deeply committed to promoting equal access to education for all students. Her academic journey is marked by a bachelor's degree in special education and a master's in higher education, which reflects her dedication to supporting college students with disabilities. Over her tenure at Spring Arbor, I learned that she has had the privilege of working with hundreds of students with disabilities. She also teaches study skill courses that are tailored to incoming freshmen with lower GPAs or students on academic probation. And her master's thesis was focused on exploring college students' perception of peers with high-functioning autism spectrum disorder and the impact of disability disclosure. So, at this point, I hope every one of you is just as excited as I am to be here with this amazing group of incredible educators with decades of experience who are now bringing academic coaching into the conversation, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in discussions about disability services or serving underrepresented student populations. So we are so grateful you're all here today. And my first question to kick us off is to just hear a little bit about how you came to find coaching. And perhaps would you be willing to share a story that highlights why you're so passionate about bringing coaching to working with students? Amanda, I'm going to open up the floor to you first, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brittany. And it's so awesome to see such a great group of people here today. So honestly, for me, I just got involved this year. I got an email from Coach Training EDU, and Brittany sent me some research on the benefits of retention with this. And so I'm shortly into my journey, but it's already been really transformative. So I'm about halfway through the program right now. And I can say, so primarily, I work with students with disabilities. I work with students who are on academic probation, and my one-on-one meetings with them have just gone so much deeper. So really, it's really putting the emphasis on that active listening and really learning what it's like to be that student. Just fully getting into that deeper level of understanding. Two students who may have the same disability, they are going to have completely different experiences. And so really, for me, not to make different assumptions because of maybe a diagnosis, but to fully tune into what is it like to be you, this person who's right in front of me, and understanding their values, getting deeper into their why. I find that a lot of my students on academic probation, the reason they're on academic probation has to deal with motivation. What happened with their motivation when conflict occurred? Okay, that for me is the main piece and mindset with that. So really helping students and empowering them, but I find there's so much more buy-in when they're the ones making the choices in the direction. So I've just seen motivation take a different direction because they're autonomous in it. I'll share a quick story. So I was recently, this was on maybe my 5th coaching session with this student. This is a graduate level student. She does have a couple different disabilities diagnoses. So she's on the autism spectrum, ADHD, and anxiety, depression. So compounding things going on there of what she's dealing with. But she had recently got an email from an instructor that said, "Hey, you're not passing my class." And she actually was 2 years into her 3-year program. She only has 1 more year to go in a master's in counseling. And all I've heard from her the last 4 sessions was how much she wants to be a counselor and her values with that. And then all of a sudden, this next coaching session, she goes, "Manda, I just want to burn it all to the ground. I just want to be done. After this email, I'm done. I'm going to go change my major. I'm going to go be a teacher." And that's that. And so in the past, I maybe would have looked at that differently. But coaching helped me take that a different lens. And I just asked her the question. I was like, "Hey, student, what's in that? What does that house look like that you're going to burn down, and what's inside of it? What are really explain it to me." And we got to her kind of explaining, well, all my hopes and dreams are in there, and really explaining, it really got out to her value system of why she wants to be a counselor. And we talked through that piece of, so many times we we sacrifice the thing we want most for the thing we want now, right? We want to avoid this conflict. And so it was a really beautiful session with this student, and she ended up submitting a bunch of missing assignments, and I meet with her next week. We'll see how that goes. But just if that can give a little glimpse into going deeper, it's been a really beautiful journey. So thank you.
Wow. Manda, I had chills. What a powerful metaphoric question and such an incredible insight, right? That in the moment experiencing that conflict, she was over everything, ready to burn it all down, but then realizing, wait, I can't do that. It has all my hopes and dreams. I can't even fully imagine how powerful that moment must have been for the student, but thank you for sharing that incredible story. Jing, we would love to hear from you. How did you find coaching, and what has been your experience or a story you've encountered with bringing it to students?
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It all started in the fall semester 2022. Everything seemed fine. I had followed the same approach that I taught before. And as usual, I expected students to feel stressed or even overwhelmed. That's normal. And one day I received an email from one of the students. Here, I code part of their message here with their permission. I'll just read it. When I got the acceptance letter from UC-Berkeley, I was overjoyed at the opportunity and was confident I could handle it. But now later in the semester, I'm realizing my mental health is catching up to me. I'm currently in the process of trying to withdraw from Berkeley. This has been one of the most difficult decisions of my life because this has been my dream school since I was 8. I'm a low-income student living with my single mom, and I honestly didn't believe I was going to college, unquote. I need a deep breath. As educator, I questioned my teaching approach and ability to support my students beyond the classroom. Did I try my best? And this led me on a journey of self-discovery and growth. And I Googled student success, academic coaching, and then I found Coach Training EDU. And here I am trying my best to make a difference in the lives of my students.
Wow. Jing, I think we all took that breath with you. Thank you for sharing that story. I think it just underscores the importance of being able to provide resources to students like this. So thank you for sharing that. I will circle back to you because I want to dive more into some of the things you've been doing in the classroom to support student success. But we'll come back to you in a minute. Dr. Rodney, if you could share a little bit about yourself, what brought you into coaching, and what impact have you seen on students since you've gotten started?
First of all, I'm honored to be a part of this great panel. My journey is kind of unique. You're looking at someone as a retiree, but back in 2020, our college was shifting from academic counseling. I have a master's in counseling, so it went from counseling to shifting to retention coaching. So mainly counseling was more going towards the psychosocial counseling. Okay, needing to have an LPC, which I'm currently working on. But in that mindset, you're looking at someone who's doing counseling for say 20 plus years, and then there's a job shift to where either you're going to either different levels of job placement, but yet in student services, that's my wheelhouse. So we shifted to the training process from the university that you're currently at, and I was part of that process of looking at counseling, going into personal counseling. I'm thinking, I thought I had all the tickets. I thought I knew what counseling was all about because of the degree itself. And yet, in the time of me going through the training, which I completed everything, but yet I still had the mindset of, is this really going to work for me? And yet, during that journey, I was trying to finish up my PhD. And, I was on that journey, ABD person for, 10 years, giving up, right? So I got motivated of going back to school. And plus, here's a story real quickly. I'm going through the training process, job shifting, this is going to work for me, looking at retiring, putting my time in. Yet, so I was on that bubble of, what's going to motivate me to hang in there. And yet, my advisor from my doctorate program said, hey, let's get back on track. Let's get you going along with going through the training process of coaching. So as I was kind of filtering through, going through the training of coaching, yet trying to go back to school, I found out that, getting motivated, got back on track. Long story short is that my advisor passed away. And then I'm in limbo again. Here I am going through coaching, how's counseling going to fit in with this, job changing and all that. So my advisor passes away. Here I'm in limbo again. What am I going to do? So as I was going through the coaching training, I ended up connecting with a coach who was one of our facilitators. And that person changed my whole life. That person who was part of your staff had was going through the training, for teaching us about coaching, going through that process. And as I was learning the coaching paradigm, I got motivated to go back to school. And that the coach did a personal coaching session with me, along with me going through the training and seeing how it acclimates to helping an older adult who thought they knew it all, thought they had everything lined up, but yet I was stuck in quicksand. My career was not progressing. I wasn't progressing educationally, but yet here I am working with students and motivating them, trying to go back to school. And I'm a living proof that this coaching process does work, because when I started this, the coach had looked at my situation and said, hey, let's set some goals and objectives. Let's get you on track. And so from that time period, starting the coaching process, going through the coaching training, all these things evolving, then my university closed down. So my university of 100 years, I'm almost ready to move forward and close it down. So I'm stuck in neutral again. Lose my advisor, my mentor, he passes away. The current college that I'm at closes down after 100 years. So I'm stuck in neutral again. So my coach said, look, let's look at other resources. So I was able to connect with another university, along with working with my coach for over a year and a half. Here I am, a product of Dr. McClain because of that coach. And going through the coaching process after I went through all the training. Now, mind you, as a counselor, I'm hands-on. I dive into it. You can't do that with coaching. You got to step back. It's student-centered. So at the end of the day, as I was working through the new paradigm of coaching with the new head of our retention coach, or personal coach, as we call it, I end up looking at retirement. So I knew that I was going to end up fading out pretty soon as a part-time teacher and as a retention coach. In all the 40 years of plus of higher education, the biggest passion I have is working with students from all backgrounds, but primarily low-income students who are first generation. And so at the college that I currently work at Milwaukee Area Technical College, long story short, one of the students that I would like to highlight was going through this different change of job shifting and applying the coaching techniques that I learned. The student had three things: mental health issue, the student was pregnant with their second child, and they were homeless. The fourth thing was they were on academic suspension. So being on academic suspension, you can't move forward academically or financial aid-wise. And a lot of times we look at students, low-income students and majority of minority students in this capacity trying to navigate life. So I think that so the student connected with me, and I had set the parameters. What do you want to accomplish? And with student-centered, the student mainly wanted to get back on track, to get the financial aid to survive, to be real. But yet the key thing was to build some goals and objectives to move forward academically. So even though the student had mental health, homelessness, working on second child, and all these ills of life, we came up with a bond and and I asked the student to write down what they want to accomplish. A, to get back on track with school. Two, to get some personal help to deal with their life issues. And thirdly, to have a place to live. And yet we identify some benchmarks and we end up helping that student. She guided us to helping her identify some resources, mental health, personal help, and also getting back on track with academically. And that was one of the success stories that I normally dealt with, but yet overall, these are the stories that I've dealt with over 40 years. Students who are just in this capacity, and mainly men who are, as we know, working with young Black men, it's a brick wall, Jericho wall. You got to break through that wall. But yet, I enjoyed the journey, and as a part-time instructor, I'm still seeing the same things that I retired from, all the ills of life, and trying to help students navigate the academic paradigms and also the issues that prohibit them, not just academically. You got to look at, some students look at, how do I survive? Do I study or do I eat? All right. So I'll let that marinate. But again, I'm a product of the coaching, teaching philosophy. Trust me, it works.
Dr. Rodney, you're probably, if you haven't already, going to make us cry by the end of this session. Thank you for sharing your own story and just how powerful coaching was to support you in so many transitions and get you here today. And then you're just continuing to support students in those same ways as you have over these last 40 years, which is incredible. I wonder if I could dive a tiny bit deeper with you before we move on to our next question, because you talked about, coming from this counseling background and having this really strong counseling emphasis and how coaching was so different. And I just would be curious to hear, how did you see coaching show up differently and support students differently than counseling through all your years of experience there?
It's a great question. I jotted down some notes. Counseling in general focuses on emotional and psychological, right? The coaching looks at goal setting and personal development. So looking at being a counselor trainer, dealing with issues and hands-on, putting folk hands-on, trying to help students navigate things themselves and being a voice for the student, being a voice for the voiceless, right? But yeah, with coaching, you got to step back. It has to be student-centered. It has to be where the student has to take the reins and guide, right? And so the hard part for me was when I was confronted with an issue, I wanted to dive in right away, and yet I said, I'm not in that capacity anymore. And I had to step back. That was the hardest thing, to step back as a counselor, looking at the psychosocial issues that are aligned with the ills that stop students from progressing. So the biggest hurdle I had faced was retraining my brain, retraining my brain to step back. And I'm still working on that, trust me. But you have those who are counselors taking on coaching. We say that counselors, we think we have it all, we don't. I think with this whole new mindset of personal coaching, you have to, again, set parameters, set, benchmarks for the students. Yeah, we do that in counseling, but when it comes down to mental health and stuff, other facets that hinder a student moving forward, you have to really, as a counselor, I'm navigating, but as a personal coach, the student has to be the one that's navigating. Okay, we're building them up instead of being the one who take the rein and run with it as a counselor. So I hope that made sense.
Absolutely. Well, and even the story you shared a minute ago was I'm just imagining, and not having any more context than what you shared with us today, but how empowered that student must have been to be able to even resource herself to say, like, hey, I do have some mental health resources. I do have some housing resources. And then coming back to you and you being able to support that and make sure that they were getting what they needed. But what an incredibly empowering conversation to say, hey, what
Can I
do
add this
you
one
have
thing?
access to? Yes.
I'll be brief. The thing that really is a challenge when you're working with the population that we work with, those who are dealing with homelessness, mental health, you can go to A to Z, all the intangible things that prohibit a student from going from application to graduation. The biggest thing that I see in a metropolitan environment is that there are resources, but sometimes the resources are not reaching the darkness of where people are, and it's really the shadow things that, we can point to the resources, we can point to the people who are controlling the resources, but students don't know how to navigate. In other words, they building that trust mechanism. And that's the thing that I want to say in coaching. Help that student build a trust mechanism with you first. Then it will branch out, to where they'll be able to empower themselves.
Mm, thank you for that addition. That's such a powerful perspective. Um, so in line with this conversation around just the challenges that Dr. Rodney, you've shared about some of the challenges your students experience. I'd love to maybe go to Jing and Manda here for a minute. Manda, maybe let's go to you next. What are some of the unique challenges you see your students encountering, and how is coaching coming alongside to support them?
Yeah, so I work with students with disabilities, right? And when you think about that piece, it's important to understand that's a really large umbrella of a spectrum of students. So a disability is any physical or mental impairment that substantially impacts one or more major life activities. So that is looking at chronic health, mental health, learning disabilities, social interactions, um, just all kinds of physical limitations. There is a large umbrella there. And there's a lot of students that we're going to work with that fit under that category. And in fact, it's actually, we have 57 million Americans that fit under that category. So there's a good chunk of our students who in some way or another are experiencing that. When I think about the unique challenges, I think it's important, something that I learned early on in my career that's been helpful for me as I'm working specifically with students with disabilities is understanding the web of oppression that they are dealing with. So that this idea can really fit to any underrepresented group potentially. But when looking at it from the piece of ability, there's really 4 eyes of oppression. The first one is ideological oppression. And when you're looking at that from the lens of ability, it's someone thinking that someone is less than if they are disabled. If they don't learn the normal way, if they don't look the normal way, if they don't interact the normal way, they're less than, right? It starts with this ideological oppression. And then it leads to also this piece of institutional oppression. So we create policies, we create systems in place for the majority, not thinking of the different piece of people that are impacted within those systems. They're not thinking about those people because of the minority aspect. They're thinking about the vast majority. Okay, so you have the institutional policies and procedures in place that aren't setting those students up for success. Okay. Then you have the interpersonal oppression where a faculty member or someone or a teacher, a parent says something to them during their educational journey because of their disability. Okay. You have all of that web of oppression that kind of leads to this. The fourth eye is this internalized oppression. Okay. This piece where the student gets to that point of they've heard enough comments, they've seen the policy, they've seen the way the systems are created, not for them, that it can really lock them in that piece of the opposite of empowerment, right? And so when I think about my role within like my job title, I'm always looking at accessibility. How can we remove barriers for those people so that they can have access to demonstrate what they know, like looking at the educational environment, the classroom setting, any physical pieces in the environment, attitudinal barriers, potentially with training for faculty, anything like that. But when I think about that from a coaching session, when I'm looking at the student in front of me, I look at accessibility a little bit different. And I think of it from a lens of how can we help you access your ability? So it's this idea of like this person really fully understanding their potential and their empowerment and their strengths. Understanding the strength side potentially of their disability, not only seeing the shadow side. Okay. And so helping that student navigate that is so empowering because I talk to so many students and I hear the narrative all the time, whether it's in my classroom of incoming freshmen coming in with the lower GPAs. I hear the narrative, I'm just not book smart. I'm not good at this. I have these goals, but I'm not that. I can't learn that way. There's this fixed mindset piece that comes in. And I think it's because of that web of oppression that they're tangled up in, which is understandable when you really think about all of those different pieces that they're navigating. But now in coaching, we have a chance to kind of change that narrative. The story we tell ourselves really matters. And so helping that student see their ability in a different light is super empowering and super getting back to that piece of that internalized oppression, helping them kind of switch that narrative for themselves. A lot of I look at some of my students that want to go into nursing. They themselves some of them have dealt with really chronic health issues. Because of that, they have a deep empathy to be able to empathize with those patients in the future. That is a strength, right? I look at some students with ADHD and yes, in the wrong environment, that can be really hard as they're distracted and it's hard to focus on something. but in the right environment, there can be a hyper-focused superpower that is better than a lot of other people in the room. And when they can activate that and feel empowered, it can switch that a little bit to get that growth mindset for them to be empowered in their journey and see it more as a different piece. So it's really looking at how can we access your ability? How can you access your ability? Asking the right questions to get them there. But another question I ask my students when I'm teaching my classes, when did you first realize that your worth was tied to a test score? How old were you? And so many of them are like, oh, first grade, right? Like this narrative starts really early. And this isn't just I think this is a universal design. Like I think a lot of our students are dealing with this, but I think especially our students that have some of those different learning disabilities and different things within that can be even more significant at times. So when I think about the unique challenges, I do think of that web of oppression that they are dealing with, but then also trying to help them see their ability in a different light to shift that narrative because they have such beautiful gifts and abilities that can be completely world changing if they can see it and they can get motivated from that. So
yes, Manda, thank you for sharing that web and seeing how every piece is facilitating the other pieces. And I love that you identified coaching gets to that in the internalized oppression, right? That starts so early. We've had this conversation a few times recently. John Williams, our founder, started as a high school teacher and moved into coaching. But we've been talking about how our entire education system basically teaches us to look for the right answer, and we don't want to take a risk and get it wrong. And if we do get it wrong, then we are somehow less than, and we're internalizing that message from the beginning, right? Very, very early on. And so when we can bring coaching into the conversation, suddenly there is no judgment. There are no right answers or wrong answers. It's just what is that student's experience? What are their lived experiences saying? And how are they making sense and making meaning of that? And it's a completely different model. And sometimes students aren't ready for it, right? Or, I mean, they'll get there, but they don't know how to respond the first time they're asked an empowering, empathetic question because they're like, well, what am I supposed to say? Right? What's the right answer here? And coaching gives their space to not have to have a right answer, but to just process their experiences. And I love that you brought it to especially how coaching is helping address that internal narrative at its core. So I want to jump off of that. It's a beautiful transition because, Jing, you have been doing what I think is just utterly incredible work in the classroom, looking at classroom management, curriculum design, and using really coaching mindsets to address the institutional oppression, right? The institutional challenges that are just kind of become inherent limits on students. So, Jing, would you be willing to share what it has looked like to bring coaching perspectives into your classroom as a teacher and a lecturer, and some of the things you've done from sort of a global perspective?
The biggest takeaway from the 1.0 course, and my coach, Loanne and Brittany, are here. Thank you so much for the journey that you offered. The biggest takeaway is the emphasis on students' agency, their agency. So my approach has shifted from teaching the course material to empowering students to explore their learning potential. So this semester, I had a most interesting class. Even students gave this class a name, Farmers Market. We had freshmen, we had undergrads, senior, we had master students, we had a PhD students, we had exchange students from China, from Switzerland. So it's really diversified population, and which is so much fun. So this semester for this particular class, because of Coach Training EDU, the class that I took, there are 4 changes. The first one is encouraging students to make and take a responsibility for their own decisions. There are two things. The first thing, they can choose different assignment deadlines. So I gave them option A and option B. Meanwhile, they can also propose their own deadlines based on their own workload. And the second thing, at the beginning of the semester, students decide their intended absence from the classes. And they also just to share their reactive motivations, the concept that I learned from the 1.0 course, and their catching up strategies. All of these are presented in the Google documents, so everyone can access it. It's an open communication environment. I really want to share how this looked like, but for some reason I couldn't find doc. It's okay if I have some time later, I will share. I will just keep going. The second change is nurturing students' growth mindset by grading their assignment 2 times. One thing that really surprised me, like I had 3 students, they had a great session with their academic advisor, and they came back and they said, well, this doesn't make sense. I was told, just work on myself, continuous improvement. And then I asked myself, yes, if we ask students to have this growth mindset, it doesn't make any sense if we give this huge exam and then they're done. Where's the improvement come from? So I decided to, grade their assignment 2 times. So in this case, they can, improve their work based on my comments. And what happened this semester, there are 4 or 5 students. After second time, for some reason, because they work on their assignment use this Google Doc, I can see how, their progress. And the assignment's already done. I graded and everything. I saw they still keep improving, keep revising. And then I'm like, so one day I just mentioned to all the class and all the students, I said, well, I want to reward your effort. So I graded those students' assignment the 3rd time. So I think this is the big change that I made. And the third change is the idea that collaboration is more important than competition. For instance, I invited students to form a team 3 times throughout the semester, so they have more opportunities to interact with their peers. One assignment is that they should review and comment on their peers' assignment before submission, instead of, just leaving their own bubble, and they started to interact, intellectually with their peers. The last one focuses on students' being. I remember the first class in this 1.0 course, students' being. Before taking the course offered by Coach Training EDU, I attended to understand students' majors, their reading capacities, and their course expectations. I hadn't realized that students are individuals with their values, beliefs, strengths, and challenges. To understand this, I created a group chat on Discord. Does anyone know Discord? Yes, it's one of their favorite social media apps. For example, I post questions about what does happenings mean to you? What's the meaning of success? All these questions, and the students can jump in to have a discussion. Interestingly, they often use memes to respond to my questions. The big challenge is that it's so difficult. Some of the memes are very contextual. It's hard for me to decipher. So a deep understanding derived from the Discord discussion really helped me to design and implement a few strategies, such as Chillax Corner. I love this name, Chillax Corner. It is for students who want to attend a class, but don't want to participate in discussion and answer my questions constantly. We all have those moments, right? Maybe some of you right now, you just don't sit there and listen. You don't want to ask and just participate. That's okay. So if students sitting in that chillax corner, their goal is to work on their active listening and ask at least one question. It worked very well. So I see the big change, but more workload for me, a lot more workload for me, but completely worth it. So yeah, it's quite amazing. I surprised myself.
Yeah, I mean, a round of applause or something is in order. I am so inspired, Jing, and have been to see you bring these concepts to life in such practical, tangible ways. And it was one of the reasons I was so excited to have you on this panel, because yes, coaching in a one-on-one capacity and relationship is powerful. And Dr. Rodney and Manda have spoken to that, and so many of you on the call have experienced that. And also, Jing, I feel like you're just taking it to a different level to say, how can coaching mindsets infiltrate everything we do, right? From creating the syllabus and inviting students to set their own deadlines, to having the chillax corner where they could show up, and just sit and chill, but still be present for class, to being able to keep revising and improving their assignments. It's, I think, shows the incredible power that coaching mindsets could have in an educational context and setting. So the question that's now coming up for me, and this might be kind of our last official question, and I'll invite people, if questions are coming up for you all in the audience, please feel free to start putting them in chat. We may not be able to get to all of them, but I'll try my best to highlight a few and bring them to the panel. But as we've been talking about, I'm going back to the word you shared, Manda, which was access, right? And a lot of what I'm hearing is about access. And how are we, I think you said, removing barriers and then creating that access. And I hear Jing sharing, she's removing barriers and she's creating more accessibility in the classroom. Manda, you're removing barriers and creating access for students internally, and then also looking at how are we doing that institutionally? Dr. Rodney, you're absolutely thinking about how are we resourcing students so they know they have access? Do they even know that they have access? And then how can we facilitate them taking advantage of that? So the question that's kind of then coming up for me here is, if you were to paint a vision of your ideal future where coaching mindsets were present in higher education and students knew that they had access to coaching resources, and you were to see the impact that could have, what is the vision? What do you hope for, right? What is the vision you have for coaching in higher education? This is a spin on a question. I kind of gave them some questions I might ask. This is a little bit of a twist on one of my questions. So I appreciate you rolling with the change, but I'd love to hear.
I feel like anyone can be a coach, first of all. And so I think any faculty member, any advisor, any staff member could get these skills, and it will help them in any relationship, but it will help our students. I don't know about other folks, but for us, our counseling center is we've got one person, right? We're a small institution, and she's got so much on her caseload, right? So looking at those students that are kind of, some of them that are at the non-functioning, getting them to functioning, but what about the students that are functioning but not thriving? What about them? And who don't necessarily need to maybe go to counseling or not, but they need support. I would argue that any college student would benefit from coaching. And I think that my vision would be that any faculty, anyone would have the skills when they're meeting with a student to know what it means to ask good, powerful questions that drive autonomy. Students do not like being told what to do. And so any way that we can just drive autonomy, that would be my vision and dream, and to get people on board with that. So
amazing. Using coaching to drive student autonomy. That is an incredible vision. Dr. Rodney.
In a perfect utopia, I would say that coaching, if we kind of project ourselves in the future, it should be the heartbeat of any student service division, any academic division. If you're looking at making a bridge between academia and student services, those two pillars kind of stand by themselves. They're isolated, right? But coaching can be a bridge to where if there's an instructor who has a student who's about to drop out of school, perfect scenario future self would be that instructor would know who the coaches are, personal academic coaches are, and have that student connect with the coach. Things are happening like that now, but it could be even more stronger. And when you look at students who are academic retention and retention of students who are dropping out because of life issues, I think a coach can play a pivotal role in all facets of academia, financial aid, you name it, any parts of the college as a whole. I see that coaches play a pivotal role, even connecting with leadership, because we have the DEI format now. I think coaches could be a big part, as we are now, building upon that. Mental health, building upon that has been talked about. And also, as we have assistant teachers, and as a professor myself, it's always good to have an assistant teacher connected with you. Why not have a connected coach, come in and do presentations? Because today you have to sell it, right? You have to go to all facets to make coaching to be known. You have to be the jack of all trades, wear many hats to make coaching a part of the mainstay of any academic institution, even of the public sector. So I see it as a future point that coaching is pivotal to all dynamics of education, personal life, you name it. So when you think of a person or a student who's having any type of situation, you connect them with a coach. A coach is aligned with every facet of the college. If we think in academic wise, every facet of the college. And I know that when it comes down to making it work in the future self, we need to say that build it right now, because when you build those bridges in the future self, it's already part of the mainstay. Because when you look at lingo, you think of counseling. You don't really think of lingo as just coaching, right? But on the academic level, it's a process that's going to build. Momentum it is building. And lastly, I like to see that taking coaching and also connecting with retirees. What about that population, right? There's so many things that you can do with coaching. I see myself, and I see that the future self of this would be that coaching will be, it won't even be thought upon as something new. It'll be thought upon as something that's transparent, as something that's already galvanized into the fabric of education.
Woven into the fabric of education. That is indeed the dream, the vision. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Rodney. Jing, how about you? What is your hoped for future for coaching?
Oh, wow. It may sound wild, but I think it's achievable, it's durable. We should also focus on faculty success. We talk about student success all the time, but if we think about academic success, I believe it has two big components: student success and faculty success. And we just put too much attention like student success, but there's a gap. So I wonder if, let me rephrase, we should, and we can use coaching to change faculty members' mindset. And on the institutional level, we should also think about the distribution of faculty labor. If we want to achieve faculty success and, all of us contribute to student success, students' well-being, it's really hard for faculty members, course instructors right now, because we have so many things in our pocket. By the end of the semester, I just feel I have nothing to give. So I think the task is big, but it's durable. So one day I hope this coaching will also focus on faculty success, and we close the gap and we make things happen.
Love that. Thank you, Jing. Dr. Rodney, do you have something to add?
one thing I want to add is that I'm working with minority students, and that's pivotal. We all have a passion to help all students, but that population sometimes it seems like they get lost in the shuffle of, I can't reach them. I don't know why they're not connecting, they're not calling, they're not emailing. I've done all I can do to reach out to them. What more can I do to reach the student? It gets to be frustrating no matter what title you have. But that population is a must. It has to be part of the process. It has to be part of the conversation. Mental health is getting rapid, but mental health is across the grid. But working with young men and women of different colors, a different ethnic makeup, you as a coach have to know what they're coming from. It is not like you got to know every cultural ill, but yet know some facet of that student. Know what type of neighborhood they come from, know what type of things they're dealing with, because sometimes you think the person outwardly is angry when it's really that they just left home. They had to go through the hell just to get to school. You know what I'm saying? And hell to get back home. And so a lot of the times we focus on just academics. Why is the student not reaching out? How come I can't reach this particular student? Are they not getting me? It's not the ideal they're not getting you. We're not getting them. So to connect with these students, it's frustrating. We got to hold the accountability has to be on both ends, but yet the students of color are building, language, all diverse languages, diverse ethnic makeup, whatever, the situation, whether, it's race, whether it's, sexual orientation, all this it's a melting pot of problems. So as coaches, I see that, or I believe that we can make a link to, come of our comfort zone. If you only coach people that look like you, then you're going to get the same response. If you coach people that don't look like you, that's challenging you to better your coaching skills. Now, I believe that as a coach, if you reach people, if you step out of the comfort zone and try to say, you know what, I may not know the Asian population, but you know what, let me connect with an Asian advisor and say, here's a situation I'm not connected with, or maybe get back to another cultural coaching competency. You know what I'm saying? So these are the things that maybe more training I need, but you cannot eliminate working with that population, because it's only going to be more worse as we move into technological, mindset. So I want to get on the soapbox, but that's the passion that I have. Black males, that's my passion. People of color, I'm an advocate for that. Mental health, I'm an advocate for that. But also of all facets, no matter what color you are, no matter what economic background you come from, we have to wear a hat of, if I don't know, let me reach to help. Let me get another coach that can connect with me. Sometimes team coaching can be a process. Just saying.
Thank you for that passion, because I think we all need to hear that and to challenge ourselves, with coaching mindsets, and then challenge ourselves outside of our comfort zone. And if John were here, he would be giving a plug for our new app, which will be coming in just a little bit, which is specifically designed to provide on-demand coaching services in an anti-bias, anti-racist manner. So we're so passionate and on board with what you just said, Dr. Rodney, and really appreciate that vision and that passion. So thank you. I do see a couple of questions, and I'm going to go there. Chelsea, thank you for this question, specifically for Dr. McClain. She says, a struggle we are having with our students with disabilities or from a first-generation low-income background is getting them in the door for their first coaching session. Is there any advice on getting over this particular hurdle?
Amanda, you want to chime in on that as well, please, hon?
Yeah, sure. Do you want me to go first, or do you want to?
Yes, you go ahead.
Okay. I love this question. So I a couple of things. One, I will say there is a process to getting students enrolled with the accommodations process. And when I first came in, I found that it was like a lot of words on a website of what they needed to do. And I thought that could, even just the amount of the process was confusing, and I hated it. So I'm like, this is a barrier to a barrier potentially. Thinking about maybe some of my students with dyslexia or different reading comprehension pieces. So something we did 3 years ago is we created a video of just simplifying that process, me talking about the accommodations process with closed captions, just to make that simpler. But I also find another barrier is sometimes parents or students' ideologies surrounding accommodations. They think, I don't want the extra help. I don't want to be a burden. Sometimes parents feel this way, but helping them understand the law is really important. So in the video, I clarify, like, if I'm doing my job right, then we're lowering barriers, but we're not lowering any course objectives. You're walking away with the same college degree. And so I think that is really helpful. An analogy I put in that video is like a racetrack analogy, because if you're familiar with the 400-meter relay, if you started everyone up at the starting line on the whole width at the same spot instead of staggering it, what happens to the people on the outer edge? They are running the twice around to do that same race. And so I explained that a little bit with accommodations for some students. If they are dealing with different barriers and they don't want to use accommodations, they don't have to, but it might be kind of similarly to running around that racetrack 2 times instead of making it equal access. And so I do find that since we did that video, we have had a lot more students come in. We give that to admissions reps. So if a student ever discloses anything about an IEP or anything like that, they're in the hands of that admissions rep. So those types of things I think are really important, getting the information out in a way that is helpful for all learning styles.
I would say in a nutshell, collaboration with advisors, like build a team, right? Working with advisors and because at Walker Area Technical College, we have a pathway model, we have the advisor, the retention coach, and other resources, but have a team concept to where you're not doing it by yourself, because it's frustrating across the grid, but collectively working together in various departments, I would say that do classroom presentations. Because I've advertised that sometimes you got to go beyond it. You got to beat the hammer down. You got to beat the drums, because getting the word out is always going to be the toughest part. But connecting with the associate deans, and then mainly instructors, going into the classrooms and the 5-minute presentation of what coaching is, how we can reach out. And I would say this: I was actually an instructor. Hey, even myself, I hear the story when coaches come in. Hey, here I am. This is my name. I'm, Coach Rodney. I'm here to offer my services. This is what I do. If any student who's listening, if you have an opportunity to connect with me on academic issues, on personal issues, you name it. This is what I bring to the table. But also, I want you to know that you're in a safe place. When you come in my office, it's a safe place to where it's a no judgment zone. So connecting with the advisors and all the team that you have that's available, and it will help you get the word out about coaching, and also get the students to be more energetic, because the more they see you, the more they'll be more confident building those bridges.
Appreciate both of those perspectives so much. I've even heard of some universities who make coaching part of their freshman orientation or their freshman seminar. So a 1 or 2 credit course that every student takes to participate or to set themselves up for success for the college experience. Part of the assignment is to meet with an academic coach on campus a certain number of times during that semester. And there's so many ways to approach this, but I am really grateful for everything you all just shared. I am going to go ahead and wrap up our time here today, just to respect everybody's time, and especially just want to say a huge thank you to our amazing panelists. The insight, the wisdom, the heart, and the empathy were just profound, and I'm so grateful and honored to have been here with each of you. So thank you for your time. Again, just round of applause and our gratitude to each of you. If anyone here is not currently engaging in coaching or is curious about what it might look like on your campus, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you once again to everyone for being here today. Thank you, Manda. Thank you, Dr. Rodney. Thank you, Jing. It's been an honor and a privilege to be here with you all.